Thus far, I've run into plenty of problems with making the motor. That's just fine because that's how the design process works. So, quick fire failures real quick. Ripped these bad boys. You served your purpose, and for that I'm eternally grateful. So you might be wondering, what is wrong? Why is there such a graveyard of lovely, mostly lovely parts? Well, we're just going to start off with the first stator. The first stator plate, much like a poor little African baby somewhere, was too thin and weak and could hardly handle any kind of bearing on the internal parts. If I would have used it, it probably would have lost its integrity when I tried to put a larger hole for a bearing, and any kind of warping from heat probably would have presented itself on this sexy stage 1 of a part. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to show you. I didn't want to talk about it. So, stator plate version 2. What a mess. Should I make it thicker? You betcha. Should I use my knowledge of density and PLA structural integrity to make the part more sound and functional? No. I guess the main difference I wanted to make was to make it print the same speed, but also be tall enough to hold the size windings I thought I would need. That just went out the door. Yeah, in the end, this busted piece of crap just ended up being some nightmare that needed to very quickly be shoved into the cover of darkness and never be shown again. So yeah. Resulting in the stator plate version 3. My brain finally started working in the right direction, and out of complete fear of producing another monstrosity of a part like stator plate version 2, the density was perfect on the first print. That's a nice and thick boy, ready to handle my hard and chrome-plated shaft here. But it's still not quite what I needed. She failed me later in the printing process because old Aussie, which I have lovingly decided to name my Ender 3 for reasons I'll explain later. I really like the strength and the overall feel of this stage, and it finally produced my final product. Stator plate version 3, baby. My brain finally clicked. Really got it all together. The spacing on all the pieces was perfect, and generally speaking, the part as a whole is working exactly as I've wanted it to. Again, good old Aussie had stuttering, but when printing one of them, it's actually this one. It is this one. I won't lie to you. It's there. But I think I should be able to haphazardly piece this together and get a functional part. Hey man, what you gonna do? Here is what it looks like though. This is the one that's not damaged. This is the one that's good on the back. This is what it looks like right now. And this is painstaking. And it makes me want to cry. And I don't want to think about how this can be done in a more efficient way than the way that I'm doing it, because it's infuriating. But I'm doing it because I want this to work. Each one of these has 21 painstaking windings on it. And it looks like a mess. Will it be functional? I sure hope so. I really hope so. And you know, if it doesn't, I'll just cry for a while, and then we'll get back to it. But so far, everything looks like it's working pretty well. I think in the end, I'm going to coat this entire thing in an epoxy. That way everything stays in there, and I'm going to put little slits in between where these other windings are, because as you can see, it's only halfway done. And that right there should, like, once I epoxy everything in clear epoxy with these lines going where they should already, like with the holes drilled and everything like that, that'll give it some good insulation. That'll keep it nice and contained, and it also won't allow any movement of the coils to touch the other ones. And I think it should help with heat as well. So I also the winding process, I'll just take this away. There it is. Dang. The winding process for this is it takes a while, man. I'm really not. This right here, that's painstaking. I gotta do that every time that I finish a winding. I have to take this off and then put it back on, and it's okay though. But here it is. Essentially, I take my template that I've got on here, slide it on, grab some wire and what have you, tape it off to the edge here. I've got like one of these, this wire right here actually shows me how far of a lead I want, enough to work with the part. And I tape it on there, and this doesn't have a break on it. So that's awesome. So I have to constantly have my hand either on this knob and I hold it here and run it off to the side, or I have to hold it up on this. Once it's tightened down, these work together, and I'll have to turn it that way, and both of which causes enormous hand cramps, and I'm gonna have beefy hands by the time that this is done, so I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it's just overall a mess and painstaking, but it is worthwhile, I hope. And if not, what you gonna do, man? I don't know. But that all aside, on the polar side of things, just leave that there. Let's take a look at the history of the polar plates. I had this first polar plate just conceptualized when I slapped her together, and I decided to just print it so I could just hold something in my hand, and it was too thin, and there's no way this tiny POS could handle being spun with magnets at the edge, nor would it be responsible for my personal health to let it spin within a 5-mile radius of me at 7,000 RPM. So around this time, the stator plate 2 had been crapped out, my soul had left my body, so I figured going beefy was the way to go. Except I didn't. Sure, I made a made a part a little bit thicker, and sure, it looks cooler because it's in a different color, but it still wasn't quite what I wanted. The prints weren't adhering properly, and my passes were looking more like toothpick walls that someone used toad slime as a glue. So this really wasn't as bad as the other one. It kind of got the principle, but still just didn't really find the date the prom. She's not the best looking. Which leads to the third polar plate that I'm making, version 3, PV3. It's a chonk, man. 26 hours of print time and absolutely no regard for my filament supply. So it's go big or go home at this point. You can probably hear it now in the distance, slowly printing away my dreams. Overall, though, my print temperature was a little low. That or the speed was too high in general, so I've lowered the print speed by about 25%, which makes me want to rip my brain out of my skull, because that means this final magnet plate that I'm working on now takes 26 hours instead of 21. But anything for my little sparks of inspiration that I have before me. Another change that I'm considering is switching over to ABS for my prints because of the strength and weight reduction it offers. It does have a few drawbacks, such as the part can be more brittle, the fact that it has fumes that come out, so I'm going to have to make an enclosure, and I'm going to have to make some changes on the printing temperature side of things. That way I can properly print it. But unfortunately now I have no enclosure, and quite frankly, I'm working with the Ozzy Osbourne of printers, and by that I mean barely functioning and knowing how to do one thing, which is barely rock and roll when I ask. I'm also considering a bigger printer, the Anycubic Cobra Max. It has an enormous build plate of 400 millimeters square, and I think that's 15.7 inches and 450 millimeters high, which is 17. It's vastly superior to old Ozzy in the quality of build, ease of use like auto leveling bed, and the ability to handle multi-day prints well, which is what I plan on doing. However, I don't think I'm ready to commit to that quite yet, although I think it would make video production much faster if I could print literally all of my parts in one massive multi-day print, but we'll see. Overall, this video was more of an update and kind of a solidification of the plan I intend to enact. Just kind of show you the direction, the progression of the build itself. It's a little bit of a painstaking process, and it's going to take a while for these things to actually develop. So I figured, another form of, content for you guys, and a better way to kind of explain myself is to give you a good rundown of everything as it's being built. So hey guys, hopefully you liked that video well enough that you can press that little thumbs up, and if you like me enough, give the channel a subscribe to see where my projects go.